All right, here we are with another section, and the main focus of this section is connecting with another services API, right? You might make a Django project that serves an API, but what if you want to take information from another site and use it in your project? Well, that's what we're going to be covering. And for us, that's going to be working with the YouTube API. If we look at this add video page that we have here, it's a little bit annoying. Like, let's say I have this great video that I want to add to my Hall of Fame. It'd be really nice if I could just copy this URL, come down, paste that, and say, boom, add this to my videos. But right now it's saying, okay, I've got to take out, this little chunk here, paste that there. I've then got to go manually copy the title and come back and paste it. Like, it's really not ideal, especially since we can get the YouTube ID just directly from the URL here, but also the title. We could directly get that from the URL if we were to use the API. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video, is sort of walking through that process, and that will really simplify things for our end user. So in order to get this all to work, let's make it so that we only ask for the URL instead of the title and the YouTube ID. So let's go ahead and go back to our code here, and let's move to our models, or excuse me, our forms, and say, instead of asking for the title, we'll get rid of that, and the YouTube ID, we simply just want the URL. So I'm going to save this, come back, reload this page. This is looking much more like what we'd like to have there. Now, I would like to say that I'd like to customize this a little bit. I'm going to say for the URL here, I would like this to say YouTube URL. So that really specifies, like, at this point in time, our site doesn't allow for videos from other places, for example, something like Vimeo or whatnot, but this really specifies, okay, for this video, you've got to provide a YouTube URL in the space. So that all looks fine, but then the question becomes, okay, so if someone submits this data to us, how do we handle this in the appropriate way and connect to the API, all that good information? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to be able to connect with the YouTube API, and in order to do that, we need an API key. So go ahead and go to console.developers.google.com. I know that's a mouthful, but console.developers.google.com. I'm sure you can just Google that as well. But you need to sign in with a Google account. And essentially, this is the starting point for using any sort of Google service. So if you're going to work with like Google Maps, or you're going to work with, in this case, like YouTube, there's lots of cool different things that Google offers here. And what we need to do is we need to start a new project. So if you haven't created one yet, I imagine there's some big start new project here. In my case, since I already have one, if you go ahead and go up to the top here, it will list out all your projects, and you can actually go and create a new one if you already have an existing one. So now once you've gone ahead and created a new project, like I have this blank Hall of Fame vids here, and if you're having trouble getting to this, again, remember console.developers.google.com. And you can list out all your different projects here. You can go to all to see all your different projects, or just the most recent ones, whatnot. But once you're there, we need to enable APIs and services, okay? So once we're here, you can go ahead and search for what it is that you want. And we want YouTube, so go ahead and just search for that. Now there's a couple of different ones here. There's like the Analytics API, ads, reporting. We want YouTube data. This is the one that just gives us all the basic information that we need. So go ahead and select that one. Then it's going to give you some information about this API. Just go ahead and hit enable. And with that in place, it's going to get everything set up for us here, and eventually give us back an API key, which the API key, which is basically allows us to make calls into this API. Now, please note that there's certain limits to this API, and that's where you can see over here on the metrics and quotas how much of this API you're consuming. But I mean, we can dive into that later. For the time being, let's go ahead and do this create credentials, because this is what we'll need to use to get our API key. So which API are we using? We're using the YouTube one. Where will you be calling this from? We are going to be calling it from a web server. What data will you be accessing? All public data. We don't need to do anything on a user's behalf. So with that in place, it says, hey, here's your API key. Let's go ahead and copy this. And let's go to our code. And we're only going to be using this API key inside of our view here. So inside of our views.py, let's go ahead and just set that, our YouTube API key is the following. So we're going to say YouTube underscore API underscore key is equal to, and add this as a string, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put that in quotes. Awesome. So with this in place, we can go ahead and hit done. Now you'll see we get this little warning here that says, hey, you can put some restrictions on this because right now, if someone has access to this key, they can just go crazy with it and make up all of its uses, right? For us right now, that's not really a big deal. The idea with this API key is this should only exist on this views.py, like the user should never be able to see this API key. But if you feel so inclined to go, make specific changes and you want to really lock this thing down, you can. But with this in place, we are ready to move forward to making it so that when someone wants to add a video, we can automatically pull that title and some other information for them. I would say I'm going to just run through exactly how to handle this, but if you would like to know more about the YouTube API, just Google YouTube API. They have some awesome documentation. They show how to use it with tons of different programming languages, Python included, with just some really great examples there of different things that you can do. So that's just a little recommendation if you want to go above and beyond. But let's go ahead in the next video actually implement what we have set up.